Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a family. They've come to the Caribbean Sea to celebrate their son Ben's birthday. Everything is going perfectly normal. Julian, Ben's mother, jumps into the water to swim while Ben and his dad, Tom, are busy fishing. Suddenly, Julian feels like something big is spinning around her while she's swimming. When she stops and looks, the sea looks completely normal. But then someone suddenly pulls her under the water. At the same time, a warning sign appears on the yacht's instruments. But Ben and Tom don't pay attention to it because they are focused on fishing. Drowning, Julian, trying to save herself, calls out to Tom several times. But no one pays attention to her. Then Julian feels like the water is moving backwards. Fortunately, Tom notices Julian drifting away from the yacht and immediately jumps into the water to save her. Ben also helps by steering the yacht closer to them and turning on the engine. Tom rescues Julian from drowning, and then Ben and Cassie pull them both up onto the yacht. They then go somewhere to give Julian medical attention. Back safely on the yacht, Tom gets angry. He reminds Julian that he'd said that whoever goes swimming, someone should be paying attention. He then asks why no one paid attention to her. He even says that if Julian had died, Cassie would have drowned herself. After apologizing, they try to forget the incident and celebrate Ben's birthday that night. During the birthday celebration, Cassie's boyfriend calls. She notices a bad storm in the city where he is. Seeing this, she gets worried for a minute because he's not in a safe place. She goes and tells her mom and dad about it. They then decide to check the safety barriers. While doing so, they notice whales and sharks shaking their yacht. Tom explains that whales and sharks often do this before a storm because they can't predict the waves. Now they have an idea about the upcoming storm. They have to face it, but first they have to deal with these sharks. During their conversation, their yacht suddenly gets a strong shock. To check it out, Tom goes into the water. He discovers a severe dent on the yacht, definitely caused by a shark. After checking this, when Tom comes back to the yacht, he's badly injured. Julian stitches his wounds, and here Tom gives them all the bad news. The shark's dent means they won't be able to move forward. Their only safe option is to call for help. Unfortunately, the signals are down, and the yacht's radio isn't picking up any signal either. In this difficult situation, Tom starts checking their food and water supplies. They only have enough water to drink for 4 days and nothing else. But Tom is relieved because he knows they are on a shipping route. Ships often pass through here, so someone will see them. During their conversation, they hear a loud noise from outside. When they go out to look, they see a meteor about to hit the ground. Tom quickly turns on the yacht's engine to save themselves, knowing that doing so will likely destroy the ship. Just like that, the yacht's engine is destroyed, and from far away, another meteor starts heading towards them. They can't do anything else to save themselves, so they quickly go to the lower part of the yacht and put on their life jackets. Then they hear a loud noise and they all faint. When they come to, they are all alive. Though injured, they are surprised. Even though there is a big hole in their boat, there's no water inside. When Tom and Ben go outside, they see that their boat has reached a rocky area. The place has completely changed. Where there was water, there are now mountains of mud. Tom quickly takes out his compass and starts looking at the direction. He realizes something has gone wrong with the ground. All the poles on the ground have changed. The North Pole is now where the South Pole was, and vice versa. Where there was a sea, there is now a lake. As soon as they realize this, they are all shocked. Tom shares another heartbreaking piece of information. He believes humanity has died in this event. Jessica, shocked by all this news, loses her senses. She locks herself in a cabin and refuses to talk to anyone. Julian starts collecting their remaining food, while Ben flies a bunch of his birthday balloons into the air, hoping that if someone is alive somewhere, they will come to their help. Meanwhile, Tom tries to contact someone through the radio. He expects no response, but surprisingly, he gets one. The response is from a captain who's in a small submarine at the time. He also knows the story of how the sea shifted because he was in the submarine with his family when it happened. That's why he survived the accident. The captain tells Tom that the Earth's poles have changed. They will return to their place in about a week, and the sea will return to its place too. However, the waves will be very dangerous at that time. He advises Tom to find a shady place to go, because it will offer a better chance of survival. Hearing this, Julian immediately tells her children to pack their things. Tom asks the captain if he can keep their children in his submarine because it would offer a safer place to be. The captain says he wants to help, but he can't. His submarine is very small, and he has already lost people in the accident. He only has room for one more person in his submarine. Tom begs the captain to make room for both children, promising to help him in any way he can. The captain finally agrees. Tom now estimates the submarine's location and tells Julian they'll be there in 2 days, just before the sea's waves return. They will send their children safely to the submarine, saving their lives. The next morning, the whole family is ready for their journey. Then Tom sees a strange man walking with his dog in the distance. Tom notices that the man is injured and decides to help him by giving him water. As soon as the man drinks the water, instead of thanking Tom, he attacks him. Julian, who was watching from afar, sees this. The man stabs the dagger in his hand into Tom's hand, killing him. Julian can't save her husband. To protect her children, she immediately goes inside the yacht. She tells them about the danger, hides them in the cabin, gives Cassie a flare gun, and tells her to fire it only when she needs it most. She was just saying this when the killer reaches the door of their cabin. To save herself, Julian hides in the washroom, hugs her wounds, and starts examining the yacht for something to eat. She quickly devours the food, obviously having been hungry for many days. After eating, the killer comes to the cabin to kill Julian. He sees that the cabin is empty since he can hear noise coming from it. Julian had actually run away through a hole in the boat. Unfortunately, the killer's dog spots her and starts barking. Julian kills the dog to silence it and hides under the boat. The killer doesn't find her, but when he sees his dog far away, he understands Julian has escaped the boat. As the killer gets off the boat to chase Julian, he climbs back onto the boat using another broken window on the other side. Unfortunately, the killer catches her shortly after. He grabs Julian by the arms, tortures her, and starts strangling her. But Julian fights back to save herself. Cassie, who's been watching all of this from the cabin, thinks now is the right time to use the flare gun. She fires it, which doesn't injure the man much, but it does set the yacht on fire. To save himself, Julian quickly grabs his 2 children and jumps off the yacht. The killer attacks Julian again, but this time Julian kicks him back and escapes. Once they are off the yacht, Cassie and Ben start crying, heartbroken at seeing their father dead. Ben feels guilty, blaming himself for the balloons and thinking that the killer was drawn to them. Julian is also crying near her husband when she sees the killer coming out of the burning yacht. It's too dangerous to stay, so she grabs her children and runs away. They run for a long time and become exhausted. They stop behind a hill to rest, but Julian doesn't think the killer will leave them alone. Ben is still crying, and Cassie tries to cheer him up with water, but he refuses to drink it. While they are talking, Julian sees the killer behind them. They quickly run again to escape from him. They become exhausted but don't stop, fearing the killer is still behind them. They reach a place with poisonous water. It's dangerous, but Julian tells her children to keep going. As they leave the area, Ben's condition worsens and Julian realizes he's dehydrated. She gives him the last drop of water she has, but it's not enough. Cassie gives up hope. She believes they are doomed, but Julian tells her to listen to her. They will keep going and it will save them. As Julian says, Cassie and Ben start walking again. They see a plane in the distance, one that must have crashed into the sea years ago. They hide inside the plane. Julian finds a family photo they took the night before. Looking at the photo, they all remember Tom. It's late at night, and everyone is tired. Cassie and Ben go to sleep, but Julian gets up, anxious, and comes out of the plane. He sees that even in the darkness of night, the killer hasn't stopped following them. The killer also sees him. Julian pretends to be asleep, and as soon as the killer gets close, Julian jumps up and attacks him. He kills the killer by stabbing him, finally removing the danger. Julian falls asleep peacefully, and when they wake up the next morning, they see the killer's body in bad shape. It makes them realize how dangerous this entire sea has become. Now they have to get to the submarine where the captain is. While Julian is looking at the map, Ben gets thirsty and goes to drink water from a nearby pond. Julian told him not to drink water from there because it's poisonous, but Ben is too thirsty to listen. Julian is forced to hold his head and pull him away. Because of drinking the poisoned water, Ben gets sick. Julian and Cassie build a shelter for him to rest. While they are resting, Julian hears strange noises. He goes outside and sees a lot of crabs heading towards them. They start running to escape, and in the distance they see a large cargo ship. There are many containers on the ship, and people are hiding in them. Seeing Julian and the children, the people go into a container and lock it. Julian keeps knocking on the door, asking for help. A large swarm of crabs is now behind them. Ben and Cassie climb onto the top of the container to escape the crabs, and Julian tries to climb up as well. A crab bites her, but Julian manages to remove it and climb up, tying her injured leg with her scarf. Then she faints. Ben and Cassie see that the crabs are cutting open the container and attacking the people inside. The people with weapons try to fight off the crabs, but they are relentless. Eventually, morning arrives, and Julian regains consciousness. She realizes her children are missing and becomes terrified because this place is so dangerous anyone could die. She starts crying out of fear, but then she sees Cassie and Ben coming from a distance. They were searching for food and weapons, and now the crabs are gone because they've moved on. Julian is overjoyed to see them. She takes care of her crab bite, and Ben starts examining the weapons he's collected. Julian contacts the captain through her radio. He tells Julian that the creatures of the sea have attacked him too. He is very injured and can't help them anymore. He explains that the sea will soon return to its place, which is why all these creatures have returned. He doesn't even know what direction to go to reach the submarine because his map was lost in the chaos. So he fires a flare gun in the air, and Ben sees the direction. They quickly head towards the submarine, spotting a small yellow submarine in the distance. But reaching it seems impossible. They have to cross a toxic waste area, which could make them sick. Cassie starts to argue with Julian, saying she failed to save her children. They argue, and Julian scolds her. Cassie tells them to keep going. While walking, they encounter another trouble. There's a landslide in the mountains, and Julian, who's at the back, falls forward and onto a large rock. She's stuck. Cassie wants to stay with Julian, but Julian makes her swear to save her brother at all costs. Cassie continues on with Ben. When they reach the submarine, no one is there. They start knocking on the door, but then the captain emerges from behind, badly injured. He tells them that he doesn't have much time left, and that there are only 3 seats in the submarine. As soon as Cassie hears this, she turns back to her mom, who's still stuck. At the same time, Julian is using her gun to fight off crabs, but she's running out of bullets. Before any other crab can attack her, Cassie reaches her and shakes her hand. This finally allows Julian to get unstuck, and they both run back to the submarine. They all get in without wasting any time. While putting on their seat belts, they see a massive wave heading towards them. They collide with the wave and pass out. When Julian comes to, she's not in the water. The giant wave has pulled the submarine and brought them to a ruined city. She realizes that she might be the only survivor. And that's how the story ends.